Hey friends, welcome back to my channel for another What's for Dinner video. If you're new, my name is Courtney, and every week I put one of these videos out to highlight the meals I made for my family over the past week. Now, this week is a little bit different because we were on vacation, so I'm kicking it off with a lunch I made for my husband the week before we went on vacation. This is just something so super simple I wanted to include it. That jar of tikka masala sauce tastes amazing. You can buy it at Walmart, you can order it from Amazon, you can get it anywhere. The directions don't tell you to put it in a crock pot, they tell you how to cook it on the stovetop. But I just take a couple of chicken breasts, mine were frozen, threw them in my slow cooker, poured the jar over the sauce, and just let it go for like 6 hours. The chicken was perfectly cooked. I just took my meat masher to shred it up. Super simple, super easy. It didn't require much from me at all, but it tastes amazing. It's packed full of flavor. So I have some plain white rice that I cooked on the stove. There it is. And I'm just putting it in these little lunch dishes that my husband uses. And I'm going to pour that chicken mixture over the top, juice and everything. Tastes so stinking good. And this took very little effort for me, very little time. It was a quick and easy meal idea that my husband was able to eat on for the entire week. I cannot recommend this enough if you're looking to get into like meal prepping for the week and stuff. Things like this make it so simple, especially when you're starting out or if you don't have a lot of time. This particular day I was super busy, so I didn't have a lot of time. But these kind of things just make everything so much easier. I know it tastes better when you make the sauce from scratch, but this shortcut saved me time and tasted really, really good. Okay, so on to the next thing. I'm actually making some breakfast. So I wanted some homemade tortillas. We like breakfast burrito sized tortillas, but the places we get the burritos from, usually the tortillas are really nice and thin, and we like that. I can't find anything like that at the store, so I'm just gonna make my own. So I just combined some flour, some salt, some baking powder, and I mix that together, and then I put in some lard. You can use butter if you want. Lard is what most places use. That's what I'm using. And you can use a pastry cutter. I just threw a glove on, and I'm just basically kind of mashing the lard into the flour until your bowl looks like it's full of kind of like a gravelly substance. That's what you want. The lard just forms all those little tiny balls, and that's perfect. That means it's incorporated throughout the flour and stuff. So to that, I'm going to add some hot water. I did put this in the microwave and get it nice and hot so it'll melt the lard. And I'm just going to go ahead and mix that in. I start off with my little spatula there, and once I feel like, it's not scalding hot anymore, I'll go ahead and go in with my hand and work the dough. Now, like with any dough, I'm going to link the recipe down below. You may have to put in a little extra flour or a little extra water. So many things can alter the way your dough turns out. Your altitude, your humidity, all of that kind of stuff. So just remember that this is just kind of like base guidelines. You may have to add a little of this, a little of that, but you want a nice soft dough. One thing that is super duper important, and I'm about to do that here, is you want to let your dough rest. So once it's like a good texture, and I was testing mine there, yeah, it held its shape. It wasn't cracked around the edges or anything, so I knew it wasn't too dry. I'm going to take it out on the bowl, work it for just a minute, and then I'm going to divide it up into portions. So I wanted large burrito-sized tortillas, so I'm not dividing this up into the full dozen that the recipe recommends. I think I did like 6 or 7, I can't remember. Anyway, you're going to go ahead and divide this up, and then I went ahead and made mine into balls, and I wrapped them up individually in cling wrap, and then I put them in the fridge. Now you need to let them rest for at least 30 minutes, but I chose to let mine go overnight. That just kind of gives the dough time to rest, the gluten forms, everything does the things it's supposed to do. So I'm just going to roll them in these little balls where I kind of pinch the edges together like that, and then kind of roll them around on the counter. The dough's just sticky enough that it kind of pulls a little bit, and that's what forms that nice tight ball. And then I'm going to wrap them up really, really well so that they're airtight in cling wrap. And you can leave them in there for up to 24 hours or just a minimum of 30 minutes. It's totally up to you. I just had some time before I went to bed this night, and I was like, well, I'll go ahead and get that done. So in the morning, I just have to kind of like roll them out and cook the filling and stuff. So that's what I did. And it made it a whole lot easier because this does take a little bit of time. So I didn't have to worry about making the dough or any of that kind of stuff. It was ready for me to just roll out and cook fresh. Now, these are not the kind of tortillas that reheat very well. I did make too many because we were going out of town, and my son really likes homemade tortillas. So I did make too many, and he was going to reheat them on the griddle, and they're okay, but you want to try to eat them as fresh as you can. That's when they are at their very, very, very best. But These turned out amazing. They were really, really good. There is nothing like homemade tortillas. They taste so much better than the stuff you get at the store in those bags. So now let's make some filling. I put a little bit of oil in the bottom of my pan, and I'm just using some frozen, I think they're called O'Brien hash browns. They have like the peppers and onions in them. It's kind of take what you can get when you go to the store when it comes to frozen potatoes right now. I'm sure you guys know that. That section tends to be pretty wiped out. So I got these O'Brien potatoes, and they taste great. That's fine, not a big deal. To it, I am adding 1 pound of breakfast sausage, and I'm just gonna let this stuff cook together. I'll break the sausage up a bit as I go, and of course it'll release some grease that'll help cook the potatoes even more. I'm not going to worry about draining the pan or anything like that. There's enough grease in here to fry the potatoes and to cook the eggs. Nothing's going to stick. It's going to be fine at the end of the day. It wasn't super greasy or anything like that. It was just right. So if you feel like it's too greasy, you don't have to do it this way. You could always cook your sausage separately and drain it on some paper towels. But this worked out great for us because I was kind of frying the potatoes. I wanted them to get just a little bit crispy around the edges and things like that. So as you can see, the sausage is broken down, and I'm just breaking it up a little bit more here and there in the frozen pieces of potatoes so everything can cook nice and evenly. I'm going to get most of this filling cooked before we roll out the tortillas because this does take a good chunk of time, and we want those tortillas as fresh as possible. So once the potatoes and sausage were cooked, I went ahead and put some salsa in. That is my homemade salsa. I will link a video to it if you're interested in making it. Super simple, super delicious. I'm going to go ahead and cook that for just a couple of minutes. Salsa has a lot of water in it, so I want that water to kind of cook out so this is not too wet. You know, you want a nice filling, but you don't want it wet because it'll just soak right through those tortillas and ruin them. So I'm going to go ahead and get the eggs ready to go, but I'm not going to cook them quite yet. I'm doing a lot, and that's because we're going to be gone for a while, and I wanted my son to have plenty of breakfast for the week. He still had to go to work. He still had his college classes, all of that kind of stuff. So I wanted to make sure he had plenty of food to get by. I bought him some ramen at the store, and I left him with a crock pot meal that was cooking. It was honey bourbon chicken, which he thoroughly enjoyed. Plus he had some frozen pizza, so I say he was probably really good to go. He ate some sandwiches too, and I think one night he stopped and got himself some Chinese takeout on the way home from work, so he was quite happy too. Anyway, I add just a little bit of half and half milk, heavy cream, whatever you have to the eggs. When I'm doing burritos like this, it just kind of helps keep them a little bit more moist, I guess. I know nobody likes that word. I can't think of another one right now. I don't want to say wet because that just is not right. Just you don't want them to dry out. All right, so let's work on these tortillas. The dough is nice and beautiful, and of course, don't judge me by my first one. First one's always the flop, right? It wasn't bad, it's just the shape. So I'm not good at rolling things out. And that first one, I really wasn't good at rolling things out. But, you know, I persisted. I didn't give up. And it turned out okay. I mean, we used the tortillas. They all tasted great. They were a little off shape. Some of them a little more square than circle, but that's okay. So I'm trying to mimic what I see people do on TV where they like turn it and flip it and all that stuff to get it all nice and even, and it starts out well. It really does. It looks like a nice circle there for a minute, right? That's going to change. I don't know what it is I did wrong. I think it started right there where that edge got a little funny, and it just from there started going more wrong and more wrong and more wrong. But I just kept rolling and rolling, and as you'll see through here, I did get better and better as time went on, but they were all still edible. You know, they all held the filling. The size was more important than anything else, and I wanted them nice and thin, and that is exactly what I accomplished at the end of the day. They might not have been beautiful, but man, they tasted so stinking good. as you can see, I just used the cling wrap that I had the balls in to kind of separate the tortillas after I rolled them out, so they didn't stick together, they didn't stick to the counter. And I didn't use a ton of flour, just enough so that everything wasn't too totally sticky. And so this last one, just wow, what happened there? I was doing so much better, and wow. Hopefully this last one here will work out much better. Baking in dough is not my thing, but sometimes I want some homemade bread or some homemade tortillas or whatever. And, you know, I just do my best. It's okay to not be perfect. Isn't that a great square there? Rectangle, square, rectangle, square. This is not my thing, you guys, but they tasted really, really good. I think that's the point. At the end of the day, it might not always look beautiful, but if you've nailed the taste, then you won, right? It's homemade. You feel proud of what you did. So I'm going to start just putting these on a nice warm griddle. It's on a low heat. It is not a high heat. I don't want to burn these. We just want to gently cook them, and you'll see that they start to kind of get the little air pockets in them and puff up a little bit, and we're just going to kind of toss them back and forth, turn them over, make sure they don't burn. While I'm doing that, I also poured those eggs into the pan in the background there, and they're also on a low heat. We're going to cook them low and slow. I like to stir my eggs a lot just to kind of keep them nice and creamy. And as you can see, I am turning the tortilla, not just flipping it, and that's because my griddle gets hotter in one spot than the other. So I'm trying to make sure that it heats evenly all the way through, and we don't get like one super brown side and the rest of it's still raw dough. So I am like paying close attention to that, because these cook fairly quickly. They don't take long, and they will overcook very, very quickly. I would rather err on the side of undercooked and then have to reheat them just a little bit before I serve them than to overcook them. As you can see, that one's starting to kind of puff up with air a little bit. You can see those air pillows in there, and that's how you know it's cooking. You can tell it's turning whiter as it cooks too, and that's because that dough is starting to kind of dry out a little bit as it goes through the cooking process. But I just kept it moving and turning because like I said, I really didn't want to burn it. I moved it to the back where it was a little bit cooler while I worked on the next one. And I just kind of went through the whole process with all of the tortillas that I made, and I really feel like there were 7 of them. I have not stopped to count them while I was watching this video, but I feel like there was 7 of them. I know it was more than what I needed. It was just my husband, my oldest, and myself that were eating these burritos. And I know I made plenty of leftovers for my oldest so that he would have plenty to eat. He's an eater. He likes his food. So I wanted to make sure that he had tons to eat. I didn't want him to have to just rely on like frozen food or burgers or something like that. Anyway, I kept going through the process, and eventually they were all cooked, and then I just gently rolled the filling up inside of the tortillas. Some of them I added cheese to, some of them I did not. My oldest can't stand cheese, and I just really wasn't in the mood for it, but my husband, of course, likes some cheese on his. You could add salsa on top if you want. I put it in the eggs, but you could always add some more hot sauce or something like that, or some jalapenos. Man, some pickled jalapenos are good on a breakfast burrito. Oh, there's my dog right there. He tried some of the tortillas too. He liked them. I don't know if that's good for dogs. Probably not. I probably shouldn't have fed it to him. Anyway, that's what we had for dinner that night. And there's a burrito. It was really, really, really good. I will definitely be making these again. It wasn't as hard as you think. All right, so we are finally back from vacation, and I'm trying to throw together a really quick and simple meal because I went to the store and I was out all day long and I'm tired. We're going to have some salmon bowls. These are easy. You can kind of put whatever you want on them, but I am using this yellow squash because that is what I had in my freezer or my fridge, and it needed to be used up because it was starting to get a little sad on me. So I'm just slicing and dicing that squash up. I probably could have used a bigger pan, but you know, it is what it is. I've got some frozen edamame there, which I love edamame. It's so good. So I'm just kind of pouring about half that bag on there, and then I'm going to season this with some olive oil, salt and pepper, and a little bit of garlic powder. And I'm just going to pop this in a 425-degree oven and let it roast for about 20 minutes or so. The squash is what takes so long. It does take a decent bit of time to cook all the way through, but that's fine. This is going to roast, and what I didn't film, and I really don't know why, I thought I had my camera rolling, but I guess I didn't. I do have some salmon, just some simple fillets. I put some sesame oil, salt, pepper, garlic powder, and a little bit of maple syrup on them, and they're going to cook in that 425-degree oven for about 10 minutes, and they're going to be part of our meal. I wish I would have shown them. I don't know why. I thought I was filming. I'm having trouble with my camera. I think it's me, though. Anyway, now I'm going to make some sauce. So I have a tablespoon of peanut butter. I'm using crunchy because I love texture. You could use smooth if you prefer. It's up to you. And then I added in about a 1/4 teaspoon of garlic powder, and I'm going to put in about a tablespoon of honey. You guys know how much I love to measure stuff, right? So I'm just kind of winging it. I'm making the sauce up as we go, but it turned out beautiful. So I highly recommend trying it. I put in about half a teaspoon of sesame oil. That stuff is strong. Don't go too harsh with that. It'll really just get you. I put in about a tablespoon of soy sauce. Then I'm going to put in about a tablespoon of hoisin sauce. And we're going to mix this up really, really well. That peanut butter takes a minute to fully incorporate. And like I said, you could use creamy. I love the texture that the crunchy brought to this though, and it's super crunchy because that's what I like. I really, really liked it. If you don't want to or don't have crunchy peanut butter, I would even suggest dicing up some roasted peanuts on top. I loved the little crunch they brought to the table. So I did taste test this to see if it was what I wanted. And of course, I'm making a few changes. I'm adding just a little bit more honey, probably close to another tablespoon. So that would be 2 tablespoons in total, and a bit more garlic powder. I'd say at least half a teaspoon at this point of garlic powder in there, mixing it up really, really, really well. And we'll taste it one more time. You always have to taste as you go, especially if you're winging it like this and making it up as you go. You want to make sure it tastes the way you want. And there it is. I put some white rice on the bottom, roasted vegetables, roasted salmon, and then poured that beautiful sauce over the top. It was healthy, it was quick, it was simple, and it was delicious. Okay, on to the final meal of this video. I've actually made this before on my channel. It might have been the first video I posted. I still have not gone to check and look at that. If I can find it, I will link it down below because I probably made it a little bit different the first time. But this is what I call steak chimichurri bowls. We went to Disney World in like 2018, I think it was, and we ate at a place over in the Avatar area of Animal Kingdom. And they had these, it was kind of like healthy bowl meals. Oh man, we got this one that had like some steak on top, some rice and grains on the bottom, and some kind of sauce that tasted similar to chimichurri. I'm not exactly sure what it was, but oh man, those were so amazing. I would go back to Disney World just to eat the food again. That place is packed full of some really amazing food. Anyway, when we came home, this was one of the meals that I really wanted to recreate. So I hopped in the kitchen, and I've kind of tweaked it over the last like couple of years to get it the way I want it, and as close as I'm going to get for now. I need to go back and taste it again. But I'm topping it with this homemade chimichurri sauce. I will link the recipe down below, and I did make some alterations. I've got parsley and cilantro in there, and I did show you how I package my parsley to keep it in the fridge, and it stays good for like 2 weeks like that, just so you know. Rolled up in paper towels inside of a plastic bag that is either zip top or just kind of twist it shut like I did. So I'm going to add in, you're supposed to use red wine vinegar. I didn't have any, so I used a red wine vinaigrette, some olive oil, some garlic, some oregano, some red pepper flakes, and it just says salt. I'm using seasoned salt. This is Julio seasoned salt, so it has kind of like a Mexican taste to it. And I thought it worked beautifully in here. And then you could put this in a food processor if you want to, but I just decided I was going to use my immersion blender. It's not a whole lot, and I felt like it was not enough for my food processor. So I just kind of worked it with the immersion blender. And of course, as you go, you might need to add a little more liquid. I felt like mine was way too thick, so I started off with a little bit more olive oil. And then here in a minute, you'll see me add a little bit of lime juice and then a little bit of water, and I get it just the perfect consistency. Now, I did add like stems and all for my herbs because I'm one of those people. I use the stems and everything. No point in wasting it. You don't have to if you don't want to. I like my sauce a little chunkier too. I want some texture in there. If you don't, you're going to want to puree this till it's totally smooth. That is up to you. I just really like texture. I know not everybody likes that. Also, I know cilantro is totally controversial. A lot of people don't like it. You don't have to include it. I just thought it kind of rounded this out a little bit more. The original recipe, I think, only calls for parsley, but I felt like this really brought something extra, and I really like it with the cilantro versus without. So that's my recommendation, but if you don't like it, don't worry about it. Don't put it in. Not a big deal. Anyway, we're just going to keep blending that up until it gets to a texture that I like, and you can see it's this beautiful, vibrant green color. It's totally fresh. It would have been better if I had fresh oregano. I didn't get any at the store because I didn't have any. I just used dried, which was fine, but it would have been even better with fresh, but that's okay. You work with what you can get, you work with what you have, and that's fine. So once this was done, I did kind of taste test it just a little bit to make sure it was what I wanted. It was beautiful and fresh and vibrant. It had a lot of flavor to it. It was just perfect. So over here, I am getting my griddle ready, and I'm going to cook some steaks. I just put a little bit of Kinder's Woodfire grill seasoning and a little bit of Kinder's salt, pepper, garlic powder mix. I think it's called the blend. And that's it. Nothing more, nothing less. I put a little bit of olive oil on there just to make sure that nothing's stuck. And I'm going to put these 3 steaks on there. They're smaller New York strip steaks. Usually I will just cook like 2 full-size New York strip steaks, but I had 3 ready to go. And like I said, these are a little bit smaller. They're on the thin side, real skinny. They're thick, but they're not a big steak. So I went ahead and popped these on here. I like to do them for like 3 minutes per side, then flip them over, do another 3 minutes. Then I like to also get the edges, especially the edge that has a fat cap on it. If we were just eating regular steaks, I probably would just trim the fat cap off before I cooked them. But for this, I went ahead and left it on because I'm going to slice these before I serve them anyway, so it's not a big deal. We do like our steak rare. So if you want a more well done steak, consider cooking it for 4 minutes or 5 minutes per side for totally well done. 4 minutes would give you more of like a medium to well, something like that. But we like it rare. It keeps it nice and juicy. The flavor's amazing. I know not everybody eats it like that. That's just what we do. In that pot off to the side over there, I am cooking some rice. It's wild rice. That's what I like to serve these bowls with, is just some regular old Uncle Ben's wild rice. I cook 2 boxes because I love that stuff. It's so good. Anyway, you can see when I flip the steaks over, they have that beautiful char on them, and that's what we're going for. That char is where the flavor is. I used to make this with a different seasoning on the outside. I think it was McCormick's Brazilian Steakhouse. I don't have any of that, and I tried it this way, and I actually think I like this better. Brazilian Steakhouse is good. It had like a nice kind of like a lime zing to it. This does not, but I liked the flavor. I think these would probably taste even better if you cooked them on the grill, but you know, it's not something I wanted to do on this particular day. There you can see I've got them lined up and I'm cooking that fat cap on the side. I'll flip them over and do all the edges, the whole bit, seal it in, you know. That's just the way I cook steaks. And then I like to pull them off to the side and put them under an aluminum foil tent and let them rest for 5 to 10 minutes. And that just lets the juices kind of redistribute throughout the steak. It lets them finish with the cooking process. And as you can see now, I'm going to go ahead and cut that fat cap off of the edge. I'm going to cut the little fat cap off of the very tip too. And just try to get as much of the big chunks of fat off as possible, just so these are nice when you eat them, that there's no gristly bits or anything like that. And now I'm just going to slice them. Sometimes I slice these super thin. Today I did it a little bit thicker because we had a little bit more steak. Like I said, usually it's just 2 ribeyes or 2 New York strips that I do. And so I slice it thinner to stretch it a little further, but we had these 3 and I didn't have to do that this time. So they're a little bit thicker. I actually think I like the thinner slices better, but that's okay. This was really good too. I thoroughly enjoyed it. As you can see, most of the juice is staying in the steak. A little bit is running out, and I have that beautiful center because it is nice and rare. Oh man, this steak was so good. I love a good steak. I really, really, really love a good steak. We don't eat it all the time, but oh, it is so nice to treat yourself every once in a while. So now that that's all done, I put some rice on the plate. I'm going to put that steak on top of it, and then we're going to top it with that beautiful fresh chimichurri sauce that we made just a few minutes ago. I kind of go heavy on the sauce just because you're going to mix it all in together. You don't have to go heavy if you don't want to. You don't have to put the sauce on at all if you don't want to. But I think it brings something really awesome to the table. Likewise, if you don't want to make it from scratch, you could always just buy a jar of chimichurri sauce. I don't think it's as good, but that's totally up to you. But that is dinner for this night. So good. I hope you guys really enjoyed these meals. I know that they were a little different than what I normally do, but like I said, we were on vacation and it was fun. If you're new here and you like this kind of stuff, go ahead and hit that like and subscribe button to keep up with all of my content. I do what's for dinner videos every week. Sometimes I do meal preps, grocery hauls, all that kind of stuff. Anyway, guys, I hope you have an awesome week and I will see you soon. Bye.